Republican presidential candidate Carly Fiorina was recently speaking to Jake Tapper on State of the Union, and she specifically touched on the issue of government-mandated paid maternity and paternity leave. Now remember, Netflix has offered up to 1 year of paid maternity and paternity leave to its employees, and of course that's very, very different from what corporations are used to doing here in the U.S., and Carly Fiorina thought that it would be a good opportunity to kind of chime in about that. So let's take a look.
For the government to tell others how to do things when the government hasn't gotten its basic house in order is not only ineffective, it's hypocritical.
What do you mean, basic house in order? The government shouldn't tell anybody that they have to offer paid maternity leave?
I don't think it's the role of government to dictate to the private sector how to manage their businesses, especially when it's pretty clear that the private sector, like Netflix, like the example that you just gave, is doing the right thing because they know it helps them attract the right talent.
Okay, so I knew that this would be a Republican talking point. As soon as Netflix took it upon themselves to offer the maternity leave, of course, free market believers will argue, well, see, the free market, let the free market decide. They want to attract the most successful, skillful employees, so this is what they do, which is true. This is what they do to kind of attract the cream of the crop. But if you follow that type of logic, it means that you believe that those who are high-skilled workers should enjoy certain protections that unskilled workers don't get to enjoy, right? So if you're a low-wage worker, all of a sudden, well, it doesn't matter if you don't get paid maternity or paternity leave. And I think that's a really ironic point to come from someone who considers themselves a pro-life individual like Carly Fiorina. Do you believe in pro-life ideology? And if you do, wouldn't you want to make sure that mothers and fathers have guaranteed paid time off to take care of their children before going back to work? I don't know. I'm very curious.
I think this really crystallizes the contradictions in a lot of Republican ideology, right? And exactly what you just said there. You are asking for mothers and fathers to value life above all else and always want to have children, but then you're not going to guarantee through government protection that they're able to take care of their children when they have them. You know, I don't think paternity and maternity leave is a trickle-down concept.
Right.
That's not how this works. And exactly what you pointed out is true, that this is, you know, if you're a talented worker, skilled or otherwise, you work for a company, then again, Netflix is the exception, not the rule.
Exactly.
There are millions of women who struggle with this decision constantly in terms of their career and trying to have a child and trying to raise that child in a way they're comfortable with and still be able to return to work. I mean, it is an extremely nuanced and fraught decision, and for her to kind of blanketly discuss it in a way, as a woman, really, I found it kind of offensive that you think you can just, using Netflix as an example, that's going to be the foundation for your opinion.
Right, exactly. I love that you pointed to Netflix as the exception, not the rule, because if you look at the statistics, you'll see what's really happening in America. First of all, those in the top 10% are more likely to enjoy things like paid paternity or maternity leave. But the reality of the vast majority of Americans out there is that they don't even get paid sick leave because we don't even have protections for that regard. So let me give you an example of what kind of protections we do have. And remember, we're the only developed country that does not have guaranteed paid maternity or paternity leave. Now, the Family and Medical Leave Act guarantees up to 12 weeks of unpaid time for qualifying workers, but it's up to employers whether or not any paid time is included. So understand what that means. You are allowed to take off up to 12 weeks, but the employer is not obligated to pay you for that time off. So I guess, all right, you won't lose your job if you take that time off to take care of your family, but you also aren't going to be making any money during that time if the company decides that they don't want to pay you. Also, if you look at the bigger picture, it really does demonstrate that Netflix is absolutely the exception, not the rule. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, 39% of U.S. private sector workers do not have access to any paid sick days. This isn't even including maternity or paternity leave, okay? Imagine that. You're sick, you need to take the time off to take care of your health, and you won't get paid for it. Also, among the top 10% of wage earners, 86% have paid sick leave, while among the bottom 10%, it's very different, only 22% do. So there are two completely different systems for the working poor and the wealthy.
It's another crystallized example of the two Americas, I think, and what Carly Fiorina is talking about is a much different America than the experience of many women and men who would like to have paid maternity and paternity leave to, offer the kind of childcare they really want to their families.
That's exactly right.
And it's just so unfortunate how far behind we are as far as advanced, industrialized nations go, and the fact that we have women who are seeking political office who are pulling us back into the Stone Ages, as far as I'm concerned. I cannot get on board with anything she had to say in that interview. And I think she didn't even have the kind of evidence or documentation or any sort of backup to her opinions. And that's what's really frustrating to me. You cannot use Netflix like that.
Yep.
And it's as a cudgel to beat women who don't have the advantages that the women who work at Netflix have, or that you, Carly Fiorina, have had.
Right. Also, there are employees at Netflix who won't get to enjoy that new policy that they have.
Right. The lowest paid workers on the rung.
Yes. So the lowest paid workers at Netflix do not get to enjoy paid maternity or paternity leave. I should also note, Carly Fiorina is doing what a lot of Republican politicians do. It's a delicate balance between pandering to the conservative right, okay, the religious base of their party, and also appeasing corporations. Because the reality is, if you're pro-life, you would want to support as many policies as possible to help support those babies, right? But they don't do that. They want to make sure that they appease those who fund their campaigns. And who are those people? They're the corporations. At the same time, they want to appeal to the religious base. So they go out there with their disingenuous talking points about, babies and how they're pro-life. They're not really pro-life. If you're really pro-life, you would do whatever it would take to make sure that mothers and fathers have some time to spend with their children right after they're born. But she doesn't care about that. And she'll say things like, no, I'm in favor of maternity and paternity leave, but I don't want the government to decide. The government is effective enough to decide what you get to do with your vagina, but not effective enough to decide whether or not you should get paid maternity or paternity leave. It's absolutely ridiculous. Can't stand a woman.
No, it's ridiculous. There is no more private sector than my friggin' uterus.
Yes.
So stay out.
Exactly.
Thanks, Carly.